I know there's been a number of companies, very big companies, that have been talking about layoffs. I mean, there's whatever's going on over at Twitter, but other companies as well that aren't in such a transition status. Meta, Netflix, Robinhood, a lot of different companies that were really darlings of the stock market over the last couple of years are now facing pressure to face profitability and prove that they can make money. What has been the overall scenario of like total layoffs in the tech sector so far this year?
Yeah, these companies basically grew really big, really fast during the COVID-fueled heyday of, people loving online services and things like that. And now with the economy sort of souring and a lot of concern there, they're realizing that they have to cut costs. Meta was in like the not ideal position of seeing revenue decline while expenses rose. So that's like an obvious red flag. You need to do something about expenses. But you're seeing a lot of contrite messages from CEOs at companies like Stripe and Shopify admitting that they basically were way too upbeat about projections for how the, COVID-fueled trends would continue. And the CEOs are taking full responsibility, saying they totally messed that up. But now they have to get real and cut costs and become more disciplined, which is what investors want to see in a market like this.
And I think it's one thing when you have a company like Peloton who just completely misjudged what was going on in that business and the demand for their product. But when you talk about bigger companies like Microsoft and Meta and even Google talking about hiring freezes or layoffs, it seems to have shifted from a corner of the market that was very pandemic fueled to now a more broader, more mature tech company that are looking at these layoffs as well. I guess my question would be, does it indicate to you some sort of canary in the coal mine for the overall U.S. economy? Is it really just something that's going to be relegated to the tech sector? Because while we've seen this in the tech sector, month after month, we continue to see new jobs added overall to this economy.
Yeah, I mean, you can sort of see it in the earnings results, I guess. Like, companies like Microsoft and Amazon benefited from these great cloud businesses that were doing great. And suddenly, there are cracks starting to emerge there. So when you sort of see those things in companies that you thought were stalwarts, that creates investor concern. And then obviously, management's thinking the same thing. So I would imagine when you start to see, those sorts of cracks across the economy, then companies will feel that they have to respond. But, like you were saying in the big picture so far, it seems like the hiring market isn't a major source of economic stress right now.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be. And clearly with a lot of these tech companies, the business-to-business piece is what's hurting, right? You mentioned cloud having a tough time. So Microsoft, Amazon, all talking about declining profits there. Certainly when you talk about a company like Zoom and the business-to-business sales there, they're weakening. But Apple, for instance, still seeing, from what I could tell, pretty strong iPhone sales, and they're, direct-to-consumer seems to be doing fairly well. And that's the part for me that I don't really see how that all plays out when it comes to the labor market. For those company stocks, it's been pretty clear, but for the labor market, what exactly happens there, I think, I don't know, at least in my mind, is not all that clear as to where things go.
Yeah, I mean, you could see from results from Visa and MasterCard, spending is still strong.
Right.
Amex had the same thing. But obviously, what people are spending on is another question. And if they're spending a ton on food and they're not getting as much discretionary stuff, then that could have ripple effects. And obviously, like Shopify is a company that's been feeling some pain, and they did their own layoffs. So I think one thing to watch for will be like any sorts of pressure in these absolute spending numbers, which have held up pretty well so far. But you certainly do have pockets within consumer tech where there's some signs of trouble, and I think even PayPal called out some kind of discretionary pressure last week. So overall, things look good in the headline numbers, but there do seem to be some cracks even in consumer spending.
Emily Bary from Marketwatch talking to us about the layoffs that have been already seen and still potentially more coming here in the tech sector. Emily, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.